When researching a lodge, a common mistake is to focus all your questions on the fishing. Don't forget to inquire about the boats and motors the lodge supplies. If you're spending 10 to 12 hours a day in a boat for 5 or 6 days in a row, comfort and space are a concern. Relatively new and appropriately sized motors should power the boats. This will allow you to spend your time fishing rather than running. Make sure to ask how far the prime fishing water is from the camp. It can be extremely frustrating to find out after the fact that a large portion of your fishing time is spent traveling to and from the prime spots. So make sure to broaden the scope of your fishing inquiries beyond the size and numbers of fish. Other than boats and motors, you'll need to know about equipment needs, such as tackle and baits. There seems to be two extremes when it comes to fishermen. Some outdoorsmen have 2 of everything and just need a list of what to bring. Others have limited equipment and may want to rely on equipment provided by a lodge or outfitter. Either way, you'll need to find out what type of gear you'll need and balance that with what the lodge provides and what you already own or wish to buy. Be sure to get a detailed list of lures, baits, or fly patterns that will be appropriate for the time of year you intend to fish. Rod lengths, actions, and appropriate lines are critical for many types of fishing. Invariably, you will spend more to buy lures or flies from the lodge itself. So plan on doing most of your shopping at home to save money. North American Fisherman's senior editor John Storm knows the ropes when it comes to assembling gear for a fishing trip. Here's John to show you what to bring on a typical Canadian fly-in trip. When John's done, we'll show you some of the awesome pike action he encountered while on location at Gangler's North Seal River Lodge.
Anytime you pack for a Canadian fly-in trip or a long-distance fishing trip, it presents a little bit of a quandary because if you're like myself, you have a lot of tackle, but on these types of trips, there's weight restrictions, there's space restrictions, and yet you don't want to be left having forgotten anything that's going to catch you that fish of a lifetime. So what I do is I look after the species that I'm going to be pursuing. I consider, in most cases, it's going to be lake trout, northern pike, and walleye. And then I assemble some boxes that I'm going to need with everything I'm going to need for those species. We'll talk more about tackle in a minute, but first of all, let's cover the rods and reels we're going to need for the 3 species I mentioned. And this is pretty critical. I like to bring 2 rods, one as a backup, one to fish, and 2 rods for each species, as well as some spare reels, spare spools, and some spare line, because you never know what's going to happen. I've seen a lot of stuff go wrong. First off is a classic walleye rod that you're going to be using for jigging, possibly live baiting if you're in an area of a province that allows live bait. Basically, it's a medium rod, medium spool, just your typical walleye rod. And if you want to go a little lighter, that's fine. Oftentimes the fish far north in Canada don't get that huge. Next, you're going to want a good solid pike rod. Doesn't have to be huge. Pike tire fairly quickly, but the initial fight is big, so you need something that's going to be able to rustle the pike, tire it out. I like a nice smooth bait cast rod. I like braided line for pike. And that's pretty much your classic bass pike rod. Everybody out there probably has a couple of them, so that's not too big of a deal. What you really might have some problems coming up with is a good lake trout rod. And I really like lake trout fishing. You're going to need a heavy rod. In this case, this is actually a musky rod. We're using it for lake trout. Heavy line, anywhere from 60 to 80 pound braid is fantastic. And you're going to have some stiff action in the butt, but it's got to have a little bit of flex in the tip. Because when a lake trout comes up to the surface, it's going to roll. You don't want it too stiff, especially with braided line, or you're going to rip that bait out. You're going to be fishing deep for lake trout, often 50, 75, 100 feet deep. So you're going to need something big, and the fish can get up to 40 pounds, 45 pounds. So don't skimp out on your lake trout rig. You want something nice and big. And don't forget to bring some extra bulk spools of line. You never want to be caught short, especially if you're fishing deep. You get snagged, you never know what's going to happen. The walleyes far up north aren't line shy. Northern pike are never line shy, and the lake trout are so deep that they're not really going to be line shy. So super lines and braids are fantastic for all around fishing up there. Now you're going to need a way to get all your rods up there safely and in one piece. So of course you're going to need a rod tube. There's a lot of different kind of rod tubes on the market. One I like in particular is this one, because you can see it's strapped along its length, and when you take the straps off, it clamshells open and you can set the rods in very nicely, very easily. Other types of rod tubes, you need to slide the rods in from one end. A couple things to consider when you're doing that. Reverse a few of the handles and the tips, pack it in a little tighter so they're not sliding around. Sometimes I like to masking tape the rods together, or to use a Velcro strap, keep the rods from sliding once again. Try to pad both ends so your tips aren't slamming up and down, because as you know, airlines can get pretty rough with a lot of the baggage, especially rod tubes. And if you have one of the rod tubes that's telescoping, meaning opening up to longer lengths, it's a pretty good idea to put a wooden dowel in there. That way it can't crimp and snap your rods like that. As well, if the pin comes out, it's not going to collapse like that and snap your tips again. Make sure you don't skimp on your rod tubes. They don't have to be expensive. You can even build your own out of PVC. But most importantly, you've got to get your rods up there. Don't take any shortcuts. Pad it up nicely, make sure everything's okay, and you'll be fine. Now when it comes to tackle, the first thing you need to consider is a good base set of tools. Here are a long pair of pliers for removing the hook, jaw spreaders, some hemos, a scale, as well as you're going to want a measuring tape, because Canadian provinces now measure their trophy fish instead of weighing them. You're definitely going to want a good bit of steel leaders. Pike will really chew them up if you get into them. I typically may bring 15 to 20 to 30 steel leaders for a week's fishing. I like to bring bottom bouncers because you never know. Walleye might be in a spring pattern in shallow water, or a summer pattern where they're real deep in craggy Canadian Shield lakes, and you're going to need something that's not going to snag up. I like bottom bouncers in that instance, so I always bring them. And then of course you're going to have your classic jig box. You want to pack your jig box real well. You want a lot of jigs. You're going to lose a lot. And to match it, you want a nice selection of plastics, curly tails, some minnows, some different plastic styles, because a lot of places up there, a lot of lakes, don't let you use live bait, so plastics are going to be your only option for walleye. Or of course you can bring some hard baits. You know, you got your crankbaits, you've got your jerk baits, and those will take walleye as well as pike. Now lake trout are quite a bit different than walleye. You're going to want bigger baits, heavier baits, flashier baits. Pretty big lake trout bait that I like a lot is a big curly tail. You can see quite a bit of difference between the size of that and a walleye curly tail, as well as heavy jig heads, 1 ounce, 2 ounce, fantastic. Spoons, also excellent for lake trout. You can go with a smaller size like that. You can use flutter spoons, or I like pulling these real big daredevils and Laker spoons, excellent baits. 5 of Diamonds patterns is fantastic. This orange has its days as well. One of the things you're going to need for lake trout, and it's something a lot of people overlook, is heavy weights. I like to fish 2 ounce weights, 3 ounce weights, because you need to get down to 50, 75 feet. Here's a snap weight. A snap weight attaches right to your line. That's an excellent option for trolling. As well, you can set up a 3-way rig. You need real heavy 3-way swivels. And then you run a dropper line to your weight. You run your spoon or plug out the back, and then your main line out the top. You can fish it to 50, 75, 100 feet, where the Lakers like to hang out. Now, if you fish pike in Canada, you're going to know that they're not that fussy, but it pays to have a good variety of baits, because they will be pretty selective on occasion. Some of your lake trout baits will pull double duty for pike. Some of your spinners and spoons as well. A real specialty bait that I like to bring up for sunset when pike go on a topwater bite is a huge walking bait. This is a Poe's Giant Jackpot, Zara Spooks. Also excellent, very exciting baits to fish for pike topwater. I also like fishing spinner baits for pike. I store mine in a soft bag. They lay flat, nice and compact. And don't forget buzz baits as well for pike, and some bucktails work excellent. Really, you look at a bag like this, you look at the modular system I have set up, it's a great way to pack your tackle for a long fly-in trip to Canada. Because it's modular. If I'm going out just for pike for an afternoon, I can bring the couple of boxes that I need. I don't have to weigh down that aluminum deep V boat where space is always at a premium. Get a soft tackle bag, pick up some of these modular tackle boxes, pack smart, cover all your bases, and you'll have a great trip.
Come on, come on. One of you boys gotta want it. Look at it. Oh!
You got him?
Got him. Look at that other one sitting right there. Just sitting there. Look at it, now he moved.
It's gorgeous. He's not ready to come in yet.
Whoa.
He rolled on you?
Yeah, he's trying everything. Jeez, jeez. Stay away from that brush. He's coming out of his mouth. We better get him in the cradle.
Yep.
Doesn't like that boat.
Nope. All right, turn him again.
Okay, Neil, here he is. Let's get him, let's get him. All right.
All right.
44 and a half.
Fish.
We'll get him back in the water.
There he goes.
Ooh,
There he is. Yeah.
Got him, huh?
Wow.
I just hit a big one right into the boat.
Oh, yeah.
That's another big one.
That's another big pike.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Hey, Neil, can you get my lure there? Beautiful fish. Beautiful fish. Great fish, John.
He's going to turn here and go again.
I'm going to get my bait out of your way here. Look at that. There's two more sitting right here.
Try to bring his head in. Unbelievable.
Congratulations, buddy.
Gangler's North Seal River Lodge. Basically, as far north as you can get and still be in Manitoba. It is pure wilderness.